He's got one foot in the frying pan and one in the pressure cooker. Believe me, as a bowler, I know that right about now, your bladder feels like an overstuffed vacuum cleaner bag, and your butt is kind of like an about to explode bratwurst.
Hey, you mind? I wasn't talking when you were bowling.
Was I talking out loud?
Welcome to Munson's at the Movies. My name is Kyle. I will once again be your host, joined by the rest of the Munsons, and I want to give them a wide berth.
He's what is called a born loser. A real Munson.
And talk a little bit about what's going on in their worlds. Starting with Rigby.
Yeah, we're trying a new recording setup tonight. We'll see how it sounds in the final version. Tonight is a recall election in the state of California. Very exciting night. Not really, but just hopefully it'll make the political ads go away. So I'm very excited for that. Also excited to talk about David Spade.
James.
I don't know how to share this information with you guys, and I don't know if you want me to get too in depth with it, but I have finally watched Kingpin.
Whoa. Ooh.
Ready to give my thoughts. You guys let me know when.
Let's hear it.
But the one that made me like audibly crack up is how much of an asshole Bill Murray is when he says like the world's a small place when you got great tits or something like that. I like burst out laughing, dude.
Yes. Dude, that's the best scene in the movie when he sees him in like the hotel cafeteria. It's so funny.
Just a magnificent asshole.
Case.
Not a ton, although I had another weird musical conversation the other day. I was talking with somebody and they told me that their favorite music was the 40s. And I felt really stupid because I was trying in my head to think about who the new band was called the 40s.
Yeah.
And like what their music sounded like. And then I realized that she was talking about the decade of the 40s. And I was like, oh, I love the 40s also. It's great. I had to go in afterwards and listen on Spotify, the top 50 songs of the 40s.
What a bizarre answer to that question. It's so bizarre.
I will tell you a toe tapper. The Andrews sisters, they sang a great song called the Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. I can't stop listening to it.
It's like the song at the end of Jeepers Creepers. Like that's a 40s song.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Jeepers Creepers. Where'd you get like that's a 40s song? That's creepy. Yeah.
That is just a bizarre answer to that question. Yeah, I've never heard anyone say that.
So Dan is a high school English and film teacher, and he has the dubious distinction of knowing Craig Case for the past 20 years. He joined us previously for 4 different episodes: Chris O'Dowd, Tim Roth, and a very brief appearance for Willem Dafoe, making him the only 4-time guest that we've ever had on the show. Welcome back to the pod, Dan.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. This is awesome.
Hey, buddy.
How's everybody doing? Great to see y'all. This is great to be back the 4th time. Hopefully we'll get it right this time.
We did not get it right the other times?
No, I haven't gotten it right. I'll put it that way.
What episode were you on the last?
Big Dick Dafoe. Big Dick Dafoe.
Dafoe, that's right.
Dan, you've come into some good ones then.
We need that Brazilian crew back that Dan carries. So I'm excited to have our Brazilian numbers back up.
All right, birthday, September 23rd. Dan's going to jump in for us. Let's see what he's got.
All right, gents, here we go. Anthony Mackie.
I'm going to go 43 for Mackie.
38.
He was recently on our wheel.
He was.
I'm going to go 48.
I think he's old.
41.
8 Mile was like 20 years ago.
Well, Mark has it on the nose. He'll be 43 today.
Sweet. Got one.
Good job, Ricky.
Next up, Jason Alexander of Seinfeld fame, Tony Award-winning actor.
I love Jason Alexander, but he's looked old like his whole life.
Yeah. The hairline doesn't help.
Yeah.
He hasn't had hair since he was like 30. I'm going to go 64.
57.
I'm going to go young with 54.
60.
62.
Damn it.
Ooh, is that me?
James.
Winner.
James. That's James,
Nice.
I think.
Me and George.
Get your chicken dinner, kid.
Yeah, and Mark is abstaining from the Springsteen one.
Behind my left shoulder, I actually have a Springsteen poster. So I know I'm obsessed with him and I know his age. So I'm going to recuse myself from this one.
Oscar-winning composer of Streets of Philadelphia.
I'm going to go 70. I think he's old. 70.
Yeah, I think you're close. 60. No, I'll go 71. I'll go over just to be nice.
Son of a bitch.
I'm going to go 65.
65. James, he's 72.
Oh, God, you get
You son
prices
of a
right,
gun.
Craig.
Great looking 72-year-old, that for sure.
He sure is. Happy birthday, gentlemen.
The 5 actors we threw onto the wheel for episode 45 are Hugo Weaving, Elizabeth Moss, Ving Rhames, Brittany Snow, but none of them matter because the wheel has chosen David Spade. David has about 80 credits, believe it or not, on his roster. And as I put in the show notes, lots of crappy films and recurring TV characters. That's my opinion.
Hey, don't try to sway my Munson Meter score this early.
I clarified it's my opinion.
You said that and lightning struck next to my house. I swear to God.
Actor trivia is where we usually start. James tends to have some really good stuff, and there's a lot out there about David Spade, so I think he has no lack of content.
Mhm.
Yes. So, Dan, you know how this goes at this point, but quick refresher. I'm going to read 3 facts. 2 of them are going to be about David Spade. 1 of them is going to be about a cast member of the Fast and Furious franchise. You guys have to guess which one is which. So, fact number 1, he was a spelling bee champion. Fact number 2, he bought a car with the money he made off one of his earlier roles, only to have the car stolen an hour later. Fact number 3, he once agreed to let Sean Penn tattoo him in exchange for an interview.
Those could all be true.
All right. So I think it is going to be fact number 2, and that is fittingly about Kurt Russell, who played nobody in the Fast and Furious franchise.
Which is a character.
Mr. Nobody, to be
very,
clear.
very important character.
I think 3 is the lie. I just don't know who the Sean Penn interviewee would be.
Why don't you ask 2001 Sean Penn? I am saying.
Went home empty-handed, right?
That's what happened.
I don't know. Jason Statham.
Why'd he go home empty-handed? One of you guys please explain why you
Cut off the recording, Craig.
I don't understand.
James is lying about fact 1 because that was actually me. I won a spelling bee back in 3rd grade, and I was maybe an extra in Fast and Furious Hobbs and Shaw.
Really? You're just bringing that up now, huh?
Congratulations.
Just stumbled onto set. I was like Seth Green in half of his cameos.
Kyle, is that true?
Yeah, I won a spelling bee. I wasn't on set, but yeah. 3rd grade. I beat all the 5th graders.
Oh, wow.
In 3rd grade. Yeah.
Badass.
I'm going number 2 is the lie, and it was Michelle Rodriguez who had that happen to her.
That is a good guess. I'll just go in order here. Fact number 1, he was a spelling bee champ. That's actually true. David Spade's actually apparently a pretty intelligent guy. He was also a member of the school chess club, went to the state finals, and is a member of Mensa. And I remember that being for smart people, but I don't actually know what Mensa is.
Yeah.
So I put that there, but I don't really know what that means.
I can assure you none of us are members.
Okay, fair. Yeah, well, I knew that. Fact number 2, bought a car with the money he made off of one of his earlier roles, only to have it stolen an hour later. True. He was an extra in Police Academy 4. I watched the scene, and it is like the most extreme nothingness. Like, we just threw skateboards into this movie, made $6,000 off of it, bought a Honda Accord, man of my own heart, buying a cheap car like this. Car got stolen an hour later, and he had to borrow money off of Bobcat Goldthwait to buy the exact same car.
That's awesome.
Fact number 3. Honestly, when I heard this, I had to include it. Also true. So they're all true. Every fact I read is true about David Spade.
Bastard.
He once agreed to let Sean Penn tattoo him in exchange for an interview on SNL. Well, he said, I'll do the interview only if you let me tattoo you. And David Spade's like, okay. And so he got a tattoo of Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes on his arm from Sean Penn. And then they did the skit
Of course.
because he was like so desperate at that time to be like in the stardom. He's like, hey, I had to make a play. And so he went for that.
Yeah, I'll desecrate my body to get you on. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
Well, you cheated a little bit, James, but fascinating guy. I mean, how could you create a lie, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there were so many that I even had to leave out.
You learn something new every day in this world. Who would have ever guessed that Joe Dirt had was in the top 2% of IQ scores in the world?
All right. Snapshot and box office history. Case, what have we got?
So in the last few episodes, we've had some actors with some really extraordinary box office numbers. This episode is no different. We also have extraordinary box office numbers, just on the other side of the tracks, if you will. I don't think it'll surprise anyone that he ranks really low compared to the other performers we've had. His highest performing box office movies actually end up being the 3 Transylvania movies so far.
That makes sense.
That's the only thing that saves him in terms of the box office numbers compared to other people. So the only comparative metric that I can look at that he's in the top half of our actors in domestic box office gross.
Okay. Making some money at home. Decent money.
Most of the money that his box office comes from is going to be domestic, which is no surprise.
It's still a W on the board.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He's had a few movies that have lost some cash. Most notable one is Lost and Found, being the biggest, losing nearly $24 million.
I like that movie. That's sad.
Yeah, man. And comparatively, we've had some other actors that have lost a lot more money and more frequently. So I think the best way to describe his box office is just modest. I don't necessarily think it's the worst, but compared to some of the other heavyweights we covered, he's just not going to measure up. So with that being said, does anyone want to give a guess on where he's ranking? What episode are we on, Kyle?
45.
Oh, okay. So yes, keep that in mind. He's 23rd in average budgets, 29th in the IMDb Star Meter ranking. Here's that number again, 45th in critic ranks, 44 in fan rankings, which surprised me, and then 31st and 39th in two different box office. And so you guessed it, Kyle. He comes in at number 45. Wow. Dead last. I don't think that's really going to surprise anybody.
I'm actually a little surprised by that.
When I look through Rotten Tomatoes at all the movies for assigning categories, there's a reason we're covering Hotel Transylvania 3 and The Emperor's New Groove in two categories, two cartoon movies.
Yes.
It's because almost every single one of his movies is certified rotten. It's insane. All right. That is the box office side. When we first said it was going to be David Spade, I said to Craig, I don't think the number is going to be real good there. And it looks like I was right.
They are not.
So 1995 that's the year we're going to use for first feature film. So before that, early days of David Spade, there's a lot. Comparatively to Elliot Page and Chris Hemsworth, the last two we covered, where James and I struggle to find things about them, there's a lot out there about David Spade. He's very open, very active in the Hollywood scene. So he's a Michigander, born and raised. So I love that. Born in 1964. His stepdad got him into speaking German, coin collecting, and playing chess as a kid. So very eclectic human. His sister-in-law is Kate Spade. You ever heard of her?
Yep.
No big deal, right?
Honestly, bro, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, so like he's related to the person who knows the brand, Kate Spade. It's like his last. I just realized it's the same last name.
I didn't realize it until this either. That's he's literally related to her through marriage.
That is the same name.
I remember her because she committed suicide the same week that Bourdain did.
What?
Yeah, it was a couple years ago.
I had no idea.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. He is an Arizona State University grad, 1990. Studied business. He's a fraternity bro, SAE. And he got involved there in something called the Far Side Comedy Hour, which is where he started doing a lot of his early comedic work. His first stand-up he was doing at a place called Greasy Tony's Pizza in the mid-'80s.
Awesome.
Greasy Tony's Pizza. That's fantastic. I need to go there.
You know it was good pizza.
So as James mentioned, his first role ever was on Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol, which left HBO Max the day before I wanted to watch it, which sucked because I was actually going to watch that. But the clip is available on YouTube.
And it's fucking terrible. It's so bad.
He was spotted while performing at the Improv in LA, which is kind of what led him to getting the role.
Interesting.
Stand up in the early days is kind of what got him into the business. After that, he did an episode of The Facts of Life in 88, an episode of Baywatch in 89, an episode of Alf in 90.
What a strange sequence. Do an episode of Facts of Life and then followed up with Baywatch.
Those are like big name shows, though. Those are like the shows back then.
Yeah.
And he did some other smaller shows, but those are the big ones at that time. I mean, Baywatch, Alf, and Facts of Life are all huge at that moment in time.
Huge.
But 90 is when he gets hooked up with Saturday Night Live. He's there 79 episodes over a 20-year period. Started as a writer, working with Dennis Miller, via Dennis Miller to get into the game, and then went on to have his own segments, a big one being Weekend Update, and then obviously being there during the heyday of Chris Farley and a lot of these others on the SNL cast crew.
That Weekend Update just so perfectly highlighted his comedic skills and angles. It was always fun to watch him on that when he was doing opinion pieces or just shitting all over people. what he was doing there was really tailored towards his comedic strengths.
That really played off of his like kind of I'm like pretentious, sarcastic vibe where he could kind of talk down to whoever he was interviewing or to kind of talk down to the audience and give like his quip one-liners. It was a really good spot for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was involved in some of the more famous skits too. I mean, he's in Van Down by the River with Christina Applegate and Farley. I mean, that's top 5 skits of all time. And then he's pretty famous for Total Bastard Airlines. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. And I don't think it's understating that his presence on SNL was his entrance into the larger Hollywood scene from there. I mean, that's where you get noticed when you're that involved with one of the biggest shows ever. But he also had a public spat with Eddie Murphy, and it took them years and years and years to reconcile their differences on that, because he made some jokes about Eddie Murphy that Eddie did not particularly enjoy.
Yeah, dude, he was like he like roasted him during one of his like weekend update things, and Eddie was watching the show and was like, what the fuck? What the fuck? But I can't believe he took it so seriously. Like any celebrity gets roasted. Eddie Murphy's like, a superstar. Of course he's from SNL. Of course he's gonna get made fun of.
Yeah.
Like, settle down, Coolio. Like, when people parody you or make fun of you, that's a good thing.
I love David Spade, but I don't know that I would have gone after Eddie Murphy.
No, definitely.
Considered one of the top 5 comedians of all time. Yeah, definitely going after a heavyweight. But over the next couple of years, small roles. So he's in Light Sleeper with Willem Dafoe, plays a theological cokehead, 92. He's in Coneheads in 93 as Eli.
He's a great character in Coneheads. He's just like government, like kiss ass, basically. Smart aleck, kind of the typical character that you would have seen him on Saturday Night Live and Weekend Update, that sort of thing. But good small role in that movie.
And then he's in Reality Bites as hot dog vendor manager in 1994. So some really meaty roles, unintended, early on in his career.
He's great in that little scene in Reality Bites. He's so funny in that scene. You know what life is like? It's a juggling act. Okay? Mm-hmm. He's so funny in that little bit.
Some quick comic relief and some smaller roles early on. But those are all big movies. Yeah. Huge movies in the early 90s there. So his first big meaty role is in 95's Tommy Boy. And James is going to talk about this for first feature film.
This is a movie where I don't think I will do it justice by kind of giving like a plot synopsis and like a deep dive into how the story develops. I think I should just give the brief overview and let you guys tell your jokes, because it's a classic. And for this to be his first feature film and for it to be a movie that so many people hold in like high regard and love, I think that's just the best way to discuss it. So Chris Farley is like the dumb son of Brian Dennehy, who owns like this kind of failing car company. And Brian Dennehy marries Bo Derek and like real quick. And then he dies like instantaneously, like 5 minutes in. And so then Chris Farley, who's the idiot son of this guy, like takes over the company and has to try to save it from his stepmom, who was just like a gold digging schemer. And what he does is he does a cross country tour with David Spade, who is his coworker. And it is fucking hilarious. Like rewatching this movie, it just makes me miss Chris Farley. Like he is so good at physical comedy, and that's such a rare skill in movies today that like you crack up every scene he's in. And David Spade plays perfect off of him as like the straight man who's condescending to Chris Farley the entire time.
Richard.
Were you calling from a walkie-talkie? Their chemistry is so funny. A few lines from David Spade's arsenal in that movie that I still quote to this day. One is, "I can almost hear you getting fatter." The scram, Tommy, don't give him the weight room routine.
That guy in a little coat.
Yeah.
And then, that's the classic.
Richard.
And then, the last one is when Chris Farley's like, he's like, "Your brain has a shell on it." And David Spade goes, "Are you talking?" I love that. Oh, it's so funny. He's just like perfectly cast as just an asshole, like yuppie, like kiss ass guy who's trying to move up in the company, who like basically feels like he's babysitting Chris Farley in this movie. It's a perfect cast for both Farley and Spade in this.
They have so much chemistry. You can tell they're like legit friends, and like they're doing jokes that they've probably done privately and been like, "Oh, this will be funny in a movie." And it is, because you could tell they like rip on each other all the time.
Well, to return back to 100% Fresh, James, that we talked about last time, you'll remember the quote that Sandler mentions in his song about Farley when he said, "The thing I miss most is watching you fuck with Spade." So like it just seems to be a thing on and off screen for them.
It's not like offensive, so I feel like it's aged well because it's like good natured humor. I feel like
it's a big one. I think it's technically his highest rated film too on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh yeah. Well, that's not hard because he's only got 2 highly rated films.
That's that and The Emperor's New Groove. That's it.
The gap is pretty wild. The critics hated this movie at 42. The audience, of course, is 90. It's a classic. People love this movie.
Classic comic.
He's only got 2 films with rankings of critic and fan over 85. Then this is one.
I'm telling you, there was only one option for Critic App, and it was Transylvania 3.
Yeah, thank you.
I wasn't trying to give you Transylvania 3.
No, I loved it. Thank you.
Well, the formula was so good in Tommy Boy, they repeated it a year later in Black Sheep. Different storyline, but same kind of concept of David Spade and Chris Farley, banter back and forth. This is, of the 2, I didn't really watch Tommy Boy much growing up. I watched a lot of Black Sheep. Again, it's classic Farley, especially when he's trying to campaign for his brother out there and losing his mind out on the campaign trail. It's similar David Spade character.
Just a total jackass. Oh, I'm the only person in history to discover white mud. Like, just making Chris Farley feel like a total idiot, which he is, but like that's what they needed. And even though it only came out a year after Tommy Boy and people probably thought it was repetitive, it's still really funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this movie got unfairly hated on just because of the fact that it came out so close. If I'm a studio, I'm doing anything I can like that first one. So it makes sense. And I think this one also holds up. Every time I've watched it, I've laughed.
So that same year, he crossed over with our boy Gary Cole in a very Brady sequel. He plays Sergio the hairstylist. A year later, he's with Joe Pesci in 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag. He plays a character named Ernie, who is a sarcastic med student in a movie that has god-awful ratings, but I didn't think it was as bad as the ratings make it out to be. It's got its funny moments. It's wacky enough. Yeah, it's wacky.
Yeah, it's a quirky movie. It's so wacky. I mean, the plot is just wacky, but it has a lot of like Diane Cannon's in it.
Chrissy Swanson's in it.
Chrissy Swanson. Yeah, it's got, and Joe Pesci obviously is the lead in it. So it's got some big hitters for sure.
His character is basically kidnapped. He thinks he's going to die. So he's just doing everything he can to help Joe Pesci, just hoping that Joe Pesci won't kill him the whole time. A year later, he's in a movie called Senseless. Wayans brothers. I don't know how to describe Senseless. He plays a cocky frat boy with a rich daddy in that one, and it's kind of a stuck-up character. And he does that well. It's just a really odd movie.
Yeah, this came out like a few years before Scary Movie, but like right around the time that The Sixth Man came out with Marlon Wayans. I remember really liking The Sixth Man, but I never saw Senseless.
The plot of Senseless is Wayans gets into like this trial to take this thing that improves his senses, and he all of a sudden becomes amazing at everything, including hockey. Like he wants to play hockey, and he has amazing reflexes. So
it sounds like Limitless with Bradley Cooper, basically.
It is, yeah, just comedic. Spade does a good job as this cocky asshole who's he's competing with Wayans to get the job at the investment firm or whatever it is. So he creates some good tension between Wayans' character. Same year, plays an eclectic Ranger Frank in the Rugrats movie. I did rewatch this.
How was it, man?
It was nostalgia. I always loved the Rugrats, so I actually didn't mind it.
I was afraid to go back and be like, oh, it's trash, because I loved the Rugrats growing up.
And it wasn't a nothing voice role. It was a small role, but his character is very hyperactive and nervous and has a lot of anxiety. So he didn't just phone it in for his tiny role.
Usually, anytime we start with a sigh, it's never something good. So I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, well, that's why I was concerned.
Well, it's just I didn't envision rewatching the Rugrats movie here in 2021, but
of course.
Here I am.
Yeah.
But I love the Rugrats, so it was fine. And then 1998, his first comedy special, David Spade, Take the Hit. That is, I think, available on HBO Max right now.
Yeah.
I watched it.
Hilarious.
It's exactly what you'd expect from David Spade.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of references to his stand-up and other things that he does. Like he talks a lot about how his grandma had the hots for Brad Pitt during that, and that comes up later. And there's another reference I'll make here in a little bit. But big enough, 8 years into his SNL run to get his own comedy special at that moment in time.
That's huge.
Yep.
And I think it was an HBO special.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, that was the gold standard in comedy specials.
I mean, this is right when Chris Rock is pushing out all of his specials right here, late 90s like this. So highest critic score is in 2000. And that is going to be Dan Craig, who, as our guest, is taking what would normally be my review. And he snagged The Emperor's New Groove.
And thank you for that choice.
Not a choice.
Yeah, I had never seen this movie.
Well, there you go. We did you a favor.
There we go.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Blind spots.
It is one of the illustrious two, okay, in which the Rotten Tomato score is above an 85. This one scores an 86%. Okay, and it comes at a weird time in Disney movies. This movie was considered a bit of a flop when it first came out. Cost $100 million, only made $163 million. And it, like I said, it comes at a weird time because movies that Disney is producing at that point are, the big, like Mulan is 2 years before this. They're like big, splashy, epic films. And that's what this one started life out as. And things quickly turned south, like I said, really fast. Sting was hired to do the music for, like I said, it was going to be this big, epic Incan story, originally titled Kingdom of the Sun, in which it was going to have like this Prince and the Pauper style plot and so on. But they quickly realized that it just wasn't going to work. So they changed it from this epic musical to this kind of slapstick comedy, because you had movies like Pocahontas and Hunchback of Notre Dame, which just were not doing as well, as some of the previous Disney movies that were out there. So Sting kind of had enough with some of the producers on the film, so much so that his wife, Trudy, makes a documentary about the film and the troubles that they were having trying to produce this movie. So much so that the movie itself, Disney bought the rights to this documentary that Sting's wife made, and Disney bought all the rights to it and have refused to show it ever since.
They basically buried it.
Wow.
Damn.
Which is crazy. Crazy. And the movie is, truth be told, pretty entertaining. Actually,
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Spade is really funny in it. Some of what the critics said about his performance. Just a couple quotes here from Roger Ebert. A little of Spade goes a long way, but here the animation provides enough distance that I actually found myself enjoying the film, even if the main character's name sounds like a discount store.
That's racist.
A little bit, Matt.
Yeah.
John Goodman.
It's really racist.
John Goodman plays his sidekick, and of that relationship, Ebert says, Goodman and Spade's relationship, which continues Spade's long-running tradition of picking fat guys as movie co-stars, is unusual among Disney pictures because the lead is a jerk and the sidekick is a hero.
What a fucking shot at John Goodman, too.
So some of the words they keep popping back up with the reviews of this movie: Spade is sarcastic. Spade is smarmy. Spade makes others feel bad throughout the course of the film. So, he's playing a role that is like tailored to himself, and he's funny. And the rest of the cast is really good too. John Goodman is awesome. Eartha Kitt is awesome. Patrick Warburton is awesome.
He plays Kronk, right?
Yeah, he's Kronk, who gets his own movie, in the sequel. Because The Emperor's New Groove kind of became this little bit of a series. And there's actually there's another film, and then there's like a short television series called The Emperor's New School that's out there. But yeah, there's a lot to like about this movie, which, to be honest, I wasn't prepared to like it.
Completely understand that.
I never seen it either. I'm with you. I thought it was entertaining. It's not my favorite Disney movie, but it was interesting to see David Spade in such a primary role in a Disney film like this.
It's a hell of a lot more interesting than Pocahontas or what was the other one that's out there? Pocahontas and Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's a lot more fun than that. It's like there's legitimate laughs in this one. So yeah, It's worth your time.
Do you think it was too highbrow for kids like that? Because I feel like no one ever talks about The Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah, it kind of had like a second life once it hit home video. Because this is a time when video is still out there. So it starts to be this movie and The Road to El Dorado. Like those are movies that kind of fell by the wayside, but they got a second life in in the home video market. As part of Emperor's New Groove, the original ending was going to, I've got to read right from it. The original ending, okay, where the main character destroys a rainforest to build his amusement park, so outraged Sting, who spent a lot of his career advocating for the rights of indigenous people, that Disney was forced to change the original ending for fear of upsetting Sting.
Good grief.
I mean, hey, you're asking me to write the songs for this shit, and it's like the one thing I care about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's creating problems. Yeah, and Kronk's New Groove also contended for lowest critic score. I think it had 0%. If it wasn't 0, it's pretty close to it as well. So, yeah.
Is it possible to be negative?
I don't know.
No, it's absolute 0. That's the lowest.
I think 0 is all you can get.
I like James stern, serious. No,
you can't go lower than 0. All right.
He's like, I'm
All
fucking
right.
serious about my Rotten Tomatoes scores. All right, and since it's a cartoon, I'm going to assume Rigby had no interest watching it and has not much to contribute.
You would be right.
and I would second that motion.
You're so intelligent.
So highbrow, aren't I?
Speaking of highbrow, let's take it to that next review, which is what everybody's been waiting for. Now, sadly, Warren's not here. Oh, man, I would have died to hear Warren's review of this since, when we brought this podcast together years ago, it's years ago at this point. It's weird to say that. We had some podcast favorites, Kingpin being one, obviously the namesake. But one of the big ones was Dirty Joe Dirt, which is David Spade's largest audience gap from 2001. Probably his most iconic role. I don't feel like I'm going out on a limb saying that in the slightest bit.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm going to do the same thing that James did earlier. I'm going to give a little bit because I think most people know about Joe Dirt. And then I'm just going to open it up because I'm sure we have a million quotes that we can add that we love about this movie. For those, if you're stuck in a hole somewhere and you've never seen Joe Dirt, this is what you need to know. Joe Dirt is a simple story about a young man and his pet meteor.
It's a big old frozen chunk of poopy.
That's what we call bowling bombs. Or you could say it's a story about a man with a mullet searching for his dickhead parents and finding out why he's finally worthy of Brandy's affection. That might be a better one to go with it, but the split on Joe Dirt's pretty significant. So critics, 10%.
Good grief.
Audience only gave it a 63. I thought that would be higher, but I mean, I guess I kind of get it. It is weird enough, as I was researching this, the character's loosely based on one of David Spade's childhood friends.
That's interesting.
It wasn't just created out of nothing, which I thought was interesting. I wonder how that friend feels about it.
Yeah, I bet that childhood friend is no longer a friend.
Oh, well, unless he made some money, then they're really good friends.
Yeah.
And then he's his godfather to his kid or something, if that's the case.
What kind of a critic goes into this movie and doesn't at least give it some positive?
Yeah.
To your point, this is on Roger Ebert's most hated movies list.
Oh,
I know that's one of Rigby's. That's Rigby's like coup de grace critic. He fucking hated this movie, right?
Get over yourself.
Yeah, he's wrong. Very, very objectively wrong.
Completely disagree with him there.
It's the movie that introduces the world to Kid Rock as an actor. You can view that positively or not, depending on your perspective.
Fellow Michigan, right? They're both from Michigan.
Exactly.
So there you go.
They get the Michigander connection. Referring to his stand-up special from a few years earlier, I'd never made the connection after watching it. The Pam scene where he's spraying down the Pam, or spraying down the stuff there with Pam, that refers to a stand-up special where he talked about how impossible those games are when you go to fairs. So he brought that over from that.
The guy with like the oxygen tank when he walks away.
So this is what I'll say. It's an insanely quotable movie, and I think that's going to be my lead to you guys.
Yeah.
Go, just jump in. What stuff from Joe Dirt stands out? Because I think that's what people want to hear.
Yeah, I mean, the whole rest of the podcast could be, for my money, Joe Dirt and Tommy Boy, we could just spend the rest of our time talking about.
There's too many to quote. I would just say that I completely agree that this is his most iconic role. Warren, who mentioned in our text chain that he had seen this movie like 20 times. I think I've seen it more because it's one of those movies that like, it's like the perfect thing to watch when you're like hungover and you just want a good laugh for like an hour and a half. Like this is like, just puts me in that comfort zone because it's so fucking stupid, but it is so funny.
You know what quote I associate with you, Rigby, since the day we met?
What?
Is when he goes, "Hoorah!" Stuck a road player up your bunghole. Hoorah!
I'm only doing this because I heard that Buffalo Bob shoved a road flare up your bunghole.
Hoorah!
I love how he keeps getting questioned about Buffalo Bob, and he's like, nothing happened. What are you guys talking about? They're like, that's not what I heard.
Auto Trader, dang. Keep that skull, baby.
Keep that skull, baby. Like there's just so many iconic lines in it that I'm glad that we can have podcasts like this to talk about it and not have to worry about the highbrow critics who hated it, you know?
For a comedy movie, it's got great pacing, and it doesn't take itself seriously at all. And Spade, he's condescending, but yet he's the buffoon.
Yeah.
So he's kind of taking both of the roles from Black Sheep and Tommy Boy, and he's both of them.
Yep.
It's classic.
You end up like sympathizing for him. Like, I know that's the point of the movie, but like, this is probably the first movie in David Spade's career where any audience member had any sort of sympathy for him.
So you're telling me that you are so ingrained with white trash DNA that your hair actually grows in all white trashy like that? I don't know if that's what's going on, but if that's what's up, then yeah.
Dennis Miller was great.
Settle down, Billie Jean King.
They used that radio interview to take the story in different areas, which was a nice touch.
Scrub them so you don't have to. No, I didn't use them.
That was also the first movie where I heard the line "jerkin my gherkin," and I've used that ever since.
Bob Seger, come on, you're listening to Leif Garrett. It's probably more like this.
Yeah, I was made for dancing.
Love when that kid cuts him off when he's wrestling the crocodiles, and he's like explaining the rules, and he doesn't finish, and the kid's like, "Wait, what are the rules?" And he's like, "Just leave me alone, man." And then he's like, "So you don't know the rules?" And he's like, "Yeah, you want to match my face, your ass."
Summed up in one line is after the crocodile incident when he gets eaten, he's like, "Oh, when bad pets go bad, dang." It's like it's so stupid, but you can't help but laugh.
It might be the most quotable comedy like I've ever seen. Like almost every
it's
line is so good.
I would say, to me, in my movie filmography that are most quotable, it's a head-to-head with Joe Dirt and probably Dumb and Dumber.
Oh, that's a good one.
Dodgeball's there for me.
I mean, I've seen Dumb and Dumber so many times that I literally know that movie like front to back, but Joe Dirt's definitely up there.
I wrote down 4 quotes and we haven't mentioned any of them. So first one, luckily my neck broke my fall. It's fucking die every time he says that one. Snakes and Sparklers, that whole thing. Again, if Warren was here, he had it memorized. He could run that. And then Van Halen, not Van Hagar. I say that all the time. When people mention Van Halen, I'm like, Van Halen or Van Hagar? Def Leppard sucks!
The Proud Italians of Long Island, what we would quote nonstop was Christopher Walken. And him being like, "You're talking to my guy all wrong."
Oh, yeah.
You do it again, I'll stab you in the face with a soldering iron.
What if we...
You got a weird accent. Is that from New York? Yeah, no, Kansas.
Oh, man.
Also, we mentioned the music in this movie. It's a great soundtrack, too. A lot of really good 70s and 80s rock. A great, really underrated movie for the end, or song for the end credits is "If You Want My Love" by Cheap Trick.
I think "Hold On Loosely's in there.
I love that song to end it.
Yeah. Sweet Home Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
You may have won the battle, but I won the
Covered in grease. It's so good, top to bottom, man.
Without a doubt.
So we're going to proceed it straight to Dickie Roberts, former Child Star, which came out in 2003. And that was his first movie with Sandler producing. And he works with Sandler a lot the rest of his career.
The one thought I would have on this is if the two of these were flipped, if this was before Joe Dirt, it would have done better.
I don't think it's as bad as people think it is.
Not even close as bad. But it's the bar was so high after Joe Dirt.
There's actually some heart in this movie with him and the kids. And I just thought it was like smut comedy.
And I think he's hilarious in this movie.
Yeah.
I've always liked this movie. I don't love it, and I don't watch it as much as Joe Dirt, but I really like this movie.
Yep. It wasn't bad. And he's a lead in that one. So again, he's going down a route here of a lot of leading roles. Coming off those in 2003, big year for him. He hosts the Teen Choice Awards. He hosts Spike TV's Video Game Awards, and he got his star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Got the star. That's a big deal, dude.
That's pretty early to get the star.
Yeah, that is wild.
Yeah, it is.
Very, very early. That's how big Joe Dirt was, and Tommy Boy and Black Sheep and all those, and SNL.
So he's how many years into his career?
95 was his first big movie, so 8 years.
Yeah, 8 years in his career. That's wild, man.
rise to stardom right there off his SNL background and roots.
He's kind of like, I'm trying to think of who, like kind of like Chris Rock. Like he might not always have make the best stuff, but like people just know who the guy is.
Mhm.
Like people
his name recognition is definitely up there.
It's huge.
Like
it's huge.
And SNL probably had a lot to do with it, but also just like the Chris Farley angle, like people just associate those two. Like they just know when you hear David Spade, you know who
his voice is very recognizable.
About,
Little trivia question for out to you guys. Would we say Spade? It took Spade 8 years to get his star on the Walk of Fame.
Technically, his first role was in '87, but it was a lot of small stuff before '95.
So we'll say 95 to start. Okay. So how long did it take Harrison Ford to get his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame? And we'll say 77 is when Harrison's starting out.
Did he get it after Joe Dirt?
No, I'm saying probably after like Indiana Jones, which is how much further later than Star Wars.
I bet he didn't get it to like 2008 or something ridiculous.
The first Indiana Jones was 81.
Okay, so that's pretty cool.
I think Dan is misleading us. I think he got it after David Spade.
I think it took him 15 years.
Well, if my math is correct, he got it, and we're starting with 77. Yeah, it took him 26 years to get his star.
What the hell?
He got his star in 2003.
Same year.
Right? That's crazy.
No, that shit must have been so much more prestigious. Yeah.
They got to be right next to each other.
Wow.
That's insulting to Harrison Ford.
Welcome to your Hall of Fame class. You're with Joe Dirt.
Yeah.
Come on over.
This is the live ball era. Everyone's numbers are juiced.
How much do you think David Spade milked his Hollywood Walk of Fame star the same time as Harrison Ford?
Yeah, it's just absurd.
Craig, this is a perfect time to bring up my little nugget that I put at the end of the show notes. Do you know who he's dated to earn the title of the Clooney of the comedy world? Speaking of milking it.
Oh, yeah.
Let me run down his dating
a ton.
resume. Heather Locklear, Laura Flynn Boyle, Julie Bowen, Terry Hatcher, Naya Rivera, and had a daughter with Playboy playmate Jillian Grace.
Good grief.
So I'd say he milked it pretty well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Point being, he milked it to date some of the most attractive women in Hollywood.
He has done very well for himself.
You know, he's funny. We learned he was smart. It makes sense. You just add famous to it, and that's naturally going to happen.
So speaking of famous, did you guys ever see his Capital One commercials in the mid-2000s?
Absolutely.
The whole no campaign over and over again. It's hilarious to rewatch. It's basically him training other staff members to tell customers no in really creative ways.
Sounds like an episode of Pop Copy from Chappelle.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. Yep. It's probably the inspiration for it.
I am the manager.
I am the manager, B. By the way, that guy is in a movie with David Spade later that we're going to talk about.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Just to show where his dramatic career has gone in the last couple of years. So 2005, he hosted SNL. So he came back and hosted, which a lot of former cast members will do. He did that. In 2006, he's in Grandma's Boy.
He's the guy when they go to the vegan restaurant.
He's the waiter, right?
Oh, is he?
He's the waiter. Yeah, he's the waiter at the vegan restaurant, and they all want to order like hamburgers and stuff. He's like, we don't have that, so they call him, instead of Shy Blow, they call him Guy Blow. It's not Guy Blow, it's Shy.
Speaking of movies that have terrible critical receptions, Grandma's Boy is like
it's the gold standard.
It is. Yeah. It really is. And then he's in The Benchwarmers as Richie in 2006, another big role in a comedy.
That was the first of the movies we'll cover that I could not finish.
You couldn't finish Benchwarmers?
Nope.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this, only because I hate
John Heder.
What's his name? Napoleon Dynamite.
Yep.
I hate his character in this movie, man. I hate it. Like, it was supposed to be funny, and I just found it to be so unfunny.
Rob Schneider's justification for beating up on little kids is that he's short. Like, that's not a justification for what you're doing. But, like, the whole movie, I just did not enjoy. I did enjoy Nick Swartzen.
Nick Swartzen is hilarious.
He's always good.
So we're on a run. I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry. He plays, I didn't make this up, he plays transvestite groupie. I don't think that's probably aged very well.
That whole movie hasn't.
Just so we're on the same page.
It didn't age well when it was new.
Dan's like, nope.
Came out Benjamin Button style. It was already pretty badly aged at that point.
And then another these are all comedies, right? He's in Grown Ups as Marcus with Maya Rudolph, Chris Rock, a movie we talked about numerous times with other episodes.
Which Grown Ups is it that has the party at the end where he's in love with the muscular woman?
where they're all fighting. That's
Craig, I can't tell you because this is the second movie that I didn't finish that we'll cover tonight. So,
yeah, I'm not a big fan of the grown-ups movies.
I'll save my review of Grown Ups 2 for later.
We're not a big grown-ups podcast. I think we've gathered that. We're sad because we don't have Warren, because Warren loves the movie Jack and Jill.
Are you joking?
And
Okay.
no, I'm kidding. He doesn't. He loves That's My Boy. That's like the shitty Sandler movie that he loves. But David Spade won a Razzie for his role as Monica for Worst Supporting Actress. So you can kind of gather some pieces. Have you guys seen Jack and Jill?
I heard was like the worst movie ever. And after I had just not finished 2 movies in a row, I was like, nope. Like if those were supposed to be so much better, I was like, I'm not even bothering.
Jack and Jill is brutal, and David Spade plays a cross-dressing woman at the end and earned his Razzie.
Jack and Jill's got 3% of critics liked it.
Just on a run here, y'all. So let's just say he salvaged some things with the first Hotel Transylvania. He plays Griffin. We're not going to talk much about it because we got a review for number 3 coming up. Mm-hmm. But he plays an invisible character.
Can we just acknowledge that 97% of people agreed on something in this country? That is so rare. And 97% of them agreed that this movie sucks.
Jack and Jill?
Yeah, Jack and Jill. That is just impressively bad.
Finally, we can come together on something.
Yeah, it's a unifying thing.
He took a moment, Spade, to do some good voice acting in a good animated film, and then he just went back to Grown Ups 2.
In Grown Ups 2, I did laugh when I saw Steve Buscemi dressed as Flavor Flav.
I don't even remember that.
I did laugh. I thought that was hilarious.
That's it, though.
That's it.
We'll just save that for the Buscemi episode eventually, which will be great, by the way. Because that man's a goddamn hero, legitimately. He's in Entourage as himself. I don't think nearly as funny as Seth Green, but one of you will all have to tell me from your Entourage days.
No, Seth Green's the best.
Guys, as I look at this, basically 2006 to 2015 was just 2016, that 10-year period. Spade is just in awful films, because then you've got Hotel Transylvania 2 is decent.
Yeah.
Decent ratings, but then he's in The Ridiculous Six and The Do-Over. And I know James watched Ridiculous Six, and I think it's one of the worst movies ever made. It's god awful.
So we skipped Grown Ups 2, which I also didn't finish. So that's 3 movies in a row of his I didn't finish. Hotel Transylvania, I liked it. I thought that was a very good movie. But he's only a minor part in it. I did not finish Ridiculous Six. It is fucking awful. Specifically, Taylor Lautner. Like, I understood what he was going for, but like once I got up to like The Ridiculous 3, I was like, nope, out. Didn't finish it again. So that's the 4th movie I didn't finish.
Partials, baby. I think it's Sandler literally showing off that he can do whatever he wants and still get paid. I think that's what it is.
Was this the first of his massive Netflix deal?
I don't know if it was the first, but it was definitely part of it.
Part of it, yeah. Early on, because The Do-Over is a year later, and that's also Netflix. And that had Trejo in it. That's why we've talked about it before. We talked about it in that episode. A long time ago, baby.
Yep.
So The Do-Over. Spade plays Sandler's like straight-edged buddy who doesn't really do anything scandalous or exciting in life. And basically Sandler drugs him and kidnaps him and takes him on a journey of excitement. And it's not a great movie. So, but that gets us the largest critic gap. And that's Hotel Transylvania 3. So we've mentioned a few times, and Case is going to talk about it. And we probably won't spend a lot of time on it because it's the third of an installment and he's a kind of a minor character. But again, there really aren't any critic gap movies with David Spade where the critics liked it more than audiences. This is it.
Transylvania 3 Summer Vacation is a 2018 animated monster comedy starring basically the Adam Sandler gang we've been discussing, and of course including David Spade. It is the highest grossing film of the franchise, thus making this the highest grossing film of his box office endeavor. It had a $80 million budget, pulled in $525 million, has a critic score of 62 and a fan ranking of 48, making this our largest critic gap. The movie picks up 2 weeks after Transylvania 2 finishes. Dracula, who's played by Sandler, is depressed. He's having all these problems, and his daughter decides she wants to take him and the family on a cruise because she thinks that he's been working too hard at Hotel Transylvania. And really what's going on is he's depressed because he hasn't been in love since his wife Martha had died. I don't know the backstory of this because I did not watch the other 2 Transylvanias.
Oh, you're missing a lot.
Before you go further, what you need to know is that in the first movie, his against his wishes, his daughter marries the human, and that's what creates all of the friction in the first movie.
Played by Andy Samberg, right?
Yep.
So they go on the cruise. On the cruise, he meets the captain of the ship, who is named Erica, and we later find out Erica Van Helsing, and Dracula and his crew, including David Spade, are basically being hunted by Van Helsing, which we know from all the monster lore movies. Spade plays Griffin, who is the Invisible Man, and I actually laughed a few times at it because all you see in David Spade's scenes are floating eyeglasses. It's actually pretty funny. Spade's voice is so obvious and it's so like distinct. It's actually a pretty good character for him being the Invisible Man. He does a really good job with it. He's got, like I said, he's got such a distinct voice. You can immediately tell by the tone that how he's talking that it's Spade. My favorite part of the movie, though, was really just like trying to pick up on all the big named actors and actresses in this movie. And as you hear their voice, like, oh, I recognize that person, and then looking them up and figuring out who it was. But everybody from the Sandler crew is in this. The movie follows a very formulaic path as most animated movies. Bright and fast graphics, really catchy soundtrack, which is highlighted in the showdown at the end of the movie where Van Helsing gets into a good DJ versus evil DJ battle with Andy Samberg and Dracula. It's whatever, right? It's not awful. I'm sure people that are more into animated movies and that type of tone would enjoy it. But the movie's got a fun cast. It's just not my flavor. And I would definitely fall on the side of the fans on this one, and maybe even a little bit lower.
Going in the 40 range.
Yeah.
Bold
yeah.
statement.
It took me 3 sittings to watch this movie.
So basically, Craig said that the one movie that is Critic Gap shouldn't be a Critic Gap. It should just be shite. It should just be another certified rotten movie. You get exactly what you expect with the Hotel Transylvania movies. I don't think it's complicated.
No.
It's fun. Sandler's voice work's actually pretty solid for that character. And
yeah, it's a fun movie. It's just not my flavor.
A lot of monster hijinks. Exactly.
No.
Well, let's transition to something that apparently is Rigby's thing, and that is the lowest critic score. Father of the Year coming in, clocking in, I believe, at 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it sounds like it's well earned on the Netflix side.
Yeah, it's a big fat 0.
Rigby, let's hear your review of Father of the Year.
Did you say 0%?
It's a 0 out of 11 reviews.
0.
So,
I think it's our winner.
All right.
But still, I mean, that's a lot of reviews with not one positive one. So,
okay.
Father of the Year is a 2018 comedy starring our boy David Spade, Nat Faxon, and Joey Bragg and Matt Shively, who I had never heard of, but they play the sons in this movie. David Spade plays Wayne, who's a drunk, poor, and inappropriate and underachieving dad. And he plays the dad to a guy named Ben. And Ben has just graduated college and he returns home to visit his dad. And after a pretty hilarious moment involving a naked David Spade in the back. First of all, did anybody see this movie besides me?
Fuck no.
I did. I watched it a while ago, and I unfortunately had to rewatch it because I wanted to re-experience the trauma.
So after a pretty hilarious moment involving a naked David Spade and the back of a pickup truck, one of the few funny moments of the movie, I will say, Ben and his friend Larry go to Larry's house and visit his father, played by Nat Faxon. Nat Faxon's like the complete opposite of David Spade. He's like mild-mannered.
He's a stiff.
He's a stiff. That's a great word to describe him. So after the two sons go out for beers and they argue kind of in a playful way, like whose dad were winning a fight. And that argument somehow gets back to David Spade and Nat Faxon about the theory is that the sons don't have any faith in either of the dads. Basically, one's like a drunk and the other's a stiff. So like who would win if they got in a fight? And it turns out like that motivates the two dads to like actually take that seriously and to train for a fight, which kind of was weird because the fight never really happens in the movie. It's like the build up to it and like all the stuff going around it. But I was kind of disappointed that I feel like the premise could have been they could have done a lot more with this premise. So I was kind of disappointed with that. I'll say it's a typical Happy Madison production. It's like a lot of gross out humor, a lot of slapstick physical comedy, the whole works that you would expect from a Happy Madison movie, especially one that went straight to like Netflix streaming service. I would actually call it like a knockoff of That's My Boy, which we talked about earlier, because David Spade has like a terrible, he's kind of similar to, I think his name is like Ronnie, and whatever Adam Sandler's name in That's My Boy is, like a drunken Boston dad who like never did anything with his life. Like that's kind of what they're knocking off on this, and which is amazing because I don't think That's My Boy should ever have. I didn't know that was a movie that was capable of having like a knockoff version of.
Inspiring,
yeah. So that says it all right there. Even though Spade is top billed in this, he's actually one of the least funny parts of the movie, unfortunately. Even though I do like David Spade, and I'll probably end up giving him a higher score than you guys do. I think the comedy in this movie comes mainly from the two sons, just because Spade's character grows pretty tired throughout the movie, and his accent's just really bad. He's got like two funny lines in the whole movie that I kind of laughed out loud at. I had a few pretty hard laughs, but wouldn't watch it again, and I definitely wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
I think it earned it 0%. It's pretty awful. It's very forgettable. Not that it's like problematic. It's just very forgettable.
Yeah, I mean, I made it through the whole thing, but
more than James could say for a lot of his. 0%. I don't think we've had a 0% lowest critic score yet. So that's a win. A new moment in Munson's history. Okay, so last couple of years of film before we get into TV, because he's done a lot of TV work. First off, 2018, he's in a small indie drama called Warning Shot. This is the movie I mentioned earlier that he was in with Guillermo Diaz, the guy who said, "Wrap up with that gavel, B," from Chappelle's Show. I am the manager.
Hell yeah, suck toes.
It's on Tubi. It's not great. And he plays a kind of like a mafia type.
Kyle, I didn't hate him in this role. It's very different, and so it's a little bit disorienting, but isn't he like the son?
He's basically managing the henchmen who are trying to get the land rights to the water.
It's not a great movie, but he's not awful in it. I was pleasantly surprised to see his take on that character.
I will give him credit for trying something different than what he had been doing for the past decade. So I'll give him that. 2018, you can judge him accordingly for this. Do you guys know who Bad Baby is?
I do.
James, how did Bad Baby get famous? Enlighten the crew, enlighten our listeners.
You might know Bad Baby from the episode of Dr. Phil where a mom brought her daughter on because her daughter was uncontrollable, and the crowd agreed with the mom and started like chirping the girl, and she said,
"Oh yeah,
why don't you cash me outside? How about that?
How about that? Yeah, I know that.
How about that?"
And she became fucking viral and became a rapper afterwards.
Became a rapper. One of her most famous songs is called Gucci Flip Flops, and David Spade appears 2/3 of the way through that music video. It's pretty funny. He shows up to her door trying to deliver milk. It's like an old style music video. And he's like, "Oh, is your mother around?" He's like, "What, motherfucker? I want your milk." And he's like, "I think I found the wrong house." He's like, after she shuts the door and is like such an asshole, he goes, "What a lovely child." And then he just disappears. It's like the most random cameo of all time. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing.
He got kind of dunked on for that because afterwards he tweeted out like, "Oh, this was taken 5 minutes after her fame was up," or some shit like that. Like 5 minutes after her moment was up. And she responded with, "I thought that guy was the waiter." Fucking crushed him. Yeah.
So let's just say 2018 he must have been looking for some cash to take that one on. Put it that way. And then the final movie we'll talk about, 2020's The Wrong Missy. He plays a character named Tim, a guy who accidentally texts the wrong blind date to come with him on a work trip to Mexico and has to deal with the aftermath. And James has a hot take, apparently.
Ooh.
No, I have the correct take. This movie fucking sucks. It's so bad. I finished it. It's not, I ended my unfinished movies in a row at 4.
There's the hot take.
Yeah, I finished
it.
This movie sucks, and he has a couple good one-liners, and there are a couple good scenes. But the reason this movie sucks is he's the straight man again, which is kind of his sweet spot. But he's playing off the most unbelievable character ever.
Lauren Lapkus.
Yeah, Lauren Lapkus. Yeah. There's no redeeming qualities about this character. Whereas with Chris Farley, he was like a lovable idiot. You could make fun of him, but he was lovable. With this, it's just she's an asshole. She's an absolute asshole the whole movie.
You didn't think it was funny at the end when he tries to fuck with her and she ends up almost going home with Vanilla Ice at the bar? You didn't think that was funny?
In one scene, they try to redeem this unredeemable character. And it is so fucking you get introduced to her and it's cartoonish and you're like, okay, I guess she's going to be cartoonish. And then they reintroduce her in a cartoonish way. And the next scene, she's fucking jerking him off in front of everyone. You're like, what the fuck is going on in this movie?
On an airplane. I like this movie. I don't know what that makes me other than a weirdo.
Honestly, the one thing in the movie I did like, I thought, again, Nick Swartzen's fucking hilarious. I think he's so funny as like
Yes.
the creepy HR guy. It was hysterical.
Swartzen's.
Rigby, would it surprise you to find out that Tyler Spindell, the writer and director of Father of the Year, also did this?
It wouldn't, even though I don't know how he got another contract from a studio after making that movie.
I think James is wrong. I don't think it's a great movie, but I think it's okay. It's like a 45.
This is Adam Sandler's friends wanted to go on a Hawaiian vacation and they had to film a movie to justify it. That's what this movie is. It stinks.
It's a business expense, right?
Exactly. It's like, oh, let's film a movie, but we just get to hang out in Hawaii for 2 months.
Based on the two testimonies, I'm
course you are.
siding with James.
Of course, yeah. Go watch it. Go watch it.
Dude, it's
She
so
wields
bad.
a huge
It's so
fucking knife.
bad.
It's hilarious. James is wrong on this one. Sorry to say. He's right in a lot of other times.
Tell me the funny parts.
I think her character is entertaining because she is so eccentric. The opening scene in the movie, he's going on a blind date and she texts him that she's like in the blue dress and she sends him to go talk to some random girl who's with her husband at the bar. And he's like, nah, she's with me. We're on a blind date. He's like, no, this is my wife. And he almost gets into a fight with him. And Lauren Lapkus is like, oh, isn't this a hilarious way to start? It's a great first date.
And the guy he almost gets into a fight with is Roman Reigns from WWE, and he's gigantic, bro. He is so huge. I did think that scene was funny, but like the introduction of her character at like on the plane is okay. So she sexually assaults him, got it, and then the next day it's like, oh, and she fucking ruins his career instantaneously. It's like fuck this character, you know. Like I'm not. And
I will give it to you that when he's hooking up with Molly Sims in a closet, it gets a little unrealistic because you're like, I don't know if that could ever happen, even in this universe. All right, so that's going to wrap up the film career. So let's get into TV because he's done a lot of TV work over the time. We really haven't mentioned much of it. So brief TV appearances over the years. First one of note, he was in a couple episodes of the Larry Sanders Show, between 92 and 98.
Great show. I agree. Yeah, I don't really remember him so much in that, but that's a fucking awesome show.
Well, speaking of fucking awesome shows, he was in an episode of Curb in 2009. So he did that as well. Entourage 2011.
Kyle, you brought up Curb Your Enthusiasm. It surprises me he's only in one episode because he seems like the perfect character for Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, maybe.
Just a total jackass, basically.
Yeah.
Kind of like Ricky Gervais. Like, I wish he was in more than one episode. Just like, yeah, I agree.
And then most recently, he was in an episode of Mr. Mayor with Holly Hunter. But let's get into the real meaty part, and that's his recurring characters over the years. So we've got early appearances on Beavis and Butthead. He plays just some one-off characters in that show between 93 and 95. And then probably his biggest sitcom, Just Shoot Me. I guess you could, that or 8 Simple Rules are the two big ones, but he got really his only awards love in his career comes from Just Shoot Me. He got Emmy and Golden Globe noms from 97 to 03.
Just Shoot Me, it's great. It holds up too.
That was a show that like, I remember it would always be on at like 11 o'clock at night when I was like in middle school, and I would always watch it and just find it to be hilarious. And David Spade, just like a typical, he works at like a fashion magazine. So he's like just a pompous asshole in it.
Right on brand.
He's a photographer, right?
Yes. He's either that or he's like the administrative assistant for the office. But either way, his job is to like keep these like egotistical models and people in control, and he's just like a jerk. 3
total noms for that. That's really like the peak of his awards in his career from a legitimacy standpoint. But then 0405, he was in the 3rd season of 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter after John Ritter died. That's the thing I learned as I was doing research, because the first 2 seasons are available on ABC, I think the ABC app, but anything past season 2 is not streaming currently, so I couldn't watch it, unfortunately. But that was a big one for him. And then just other ones, Carpet Bros, Rules of Engagement, like you mentioned, Rigby, and then most recently The Mayor and Love over the past 4 or 5 years. So he's done a lot of recurring TV over the time to keep himself busy when he's not doing shitty Sandler films. All right, that's anything that we missed roles wise. I think those are the big ones, right?
Yep.
All right, top performances. Rigby's going to have something for us.
Grown Ups 1, Grown Ups 2.
Ridiculous 6.
Yeah.
I hope you pulled a like worst performances list. That would be fun.
General Custer and Ridiculous 6.
I actually got a list from comingsoon.net, our favorite, our old trust.
Oh.
Ooh. Ooh.
And this is the 5 best David Spade film roles.
When did it come out?
This doesn't have a year on it, but let's just assume it came out over the last couple of years.
Well, Joe Dirt, obviously.
Yeah.
Joe Dirt, yep. And this is not in numerical order, by the way. So
Okay.
And it's only film roles, right?
yes. And we've talked about all but one of them.
Ooh.
Okay. Tommy Boy, obviously, then.
Yep.
It's going to be on there.
Black Sheep.
Nope.
Ooh. Never a good sign when we struggle to name 5 roles.
What about Dickie Roberts?
Nope.
That was a good guess, though.
What's the other one we've talked about? Give me Hotel Transylvania.
Nope.
How about 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag?
Nope.
Hint?
The Wrong Missy.
Comedy, drama?
One of his first film roles.
Police Academy 4.
Oh, even before. So Coneheads? It's Coneheads.
Coneheads, yes.
Wow.
All right.
So the one we didn't mention, which I kind of wish we would have because I've seen it and it's kind of like a cult comedy still to this day, is PCU.
I was going to say PCU, yeah.
There was a shitty version on YouTube. I didn't watch it
He's
because
so
it was
great.
awful.
I can't believe we didn't even hit that at all. He's really good there.
Yeah, we didn't mention that in the.
What is he in PCU? I don't remember him at all.
He's a fraternity brother in that.
Yeah.
He's a
Early Favreau.
that's a cult classic, and it's got like Jeremy Piven.
Favreau's in it, right?
All I remember is Jeremy Piven, and wasn't it also Artie
Yep.
Lang?
Yep, it's definitely it's one of those movies that like people. It's like a zany movie from the '90s that people still talk about.
That's why I like doing these top performances, because there's always one we didn't talk about.
Yeah.
Which I think is good. It's good. Like, oh yeah, we can't hit everything, and there's that one thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
So that's the 5. That's from comingsoon.net. So good job, guys.
Our boys.
We can all agree Joe Dirt's number 1, right?
Absolutely.
Like,
I don't know.
Absolutely.
No.
Yeah, it's got to be number 1.
With Tommy Boy a close 2, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true.
No, but Tommy Boy's not great because of him. He's
and I would put
in
Tommy
a good
Boy and Black
movie.
Sheep into like the same bubble of similar role.
But would Tommy Boy have been as good without Spade?
Probably not.
No,
Probably not, but
You want to take it easy? You're going to smell like a cab driver. Not that that's wrong.
Munson Meter. Let's get into the scoring system. The way this works, each one of us rates the actor on a scale of 0 to 100 based on a variety of factors. Factors can include anything from longevity, project choice, pop culture impact, their range as an actor, awards footprint, any other talents they might have, their personal life, comedic chops, box office success, and anything else that matters to us as Munsons. This time we will start with Rigby.
David Spade, we all know who he is. He's got, as we mentioned in the podcast, he's got really good extreme name recognition, longevity. He's been around since the mid 80s, started getting his foot in the door then, and then started making movies in the early 90s. Obviously, he is, as Craig mentioned, he's our lowest critic score of everyone that we've covered in our 45 episodes. So he takes a hit there. But for me, you get points when you establish yourself as which with him, it's interesting because in the first part of his career, he was like the pompous asshole villain type character. And he's kind of expanded to the Joe Dirt, sort of like drunk, inappropriate type over his film career. And he's sort of crossed off 2 boxes there, but they're similar in a way in that there's no really skill that's required to do those roles, I think. So he takes hits from me in terms of range, but longevity and just overall name recognition, he earns some points with me there. So all that being said, he gets a 71 from me.
I think you guys probably know how I feel about David Spade. He's funny in some roles, but as I look in my scoring system, the only area where 2 areas he excels. He excels in pop culture impact, which I almost gave him max points there. Longevity, I guess, as well. He's been around a long time. It's been busy. And then other talents. I think he's got some other things he brings to the table. He's a decent TV show host. He does guest appearances and things like that. Kind of hosted his own comedy specials and things like that for some different networks. So I think he's got some talent there, along with the German, the chess, just really random things that he does well. But I have to take into account limited awards, has his Razzie, won his Razzie. We've had others be nominated, didn't necessarily reach the upper echelon of winning a Razzie. So, And he earned that one, let me tell you. I do love Joe Dirt, though. It's hard, you have to take in account, intangibles. Joe Dirt, that role basically took up the entire points that I would give there. And I find his Playboy lifestyle wildly surprising and impressive, given his stature, what he looks like, and everything else involved.
Yeah, he's a smooth talker, dude.
Humor takes you places. He's established in some pretty big sitcoms like Just Shoot Me and 8 Simple Rules. So I got to give him credit there. But I don't think he's a very capable lead outside of movies like Joe Dirt. I don't think he can necessarily carry a film. I think he's best when he's just sarcastic side character who appears in a little bit of the movie. Yeah, but ones that he has to be the lead, unless it's a voice acting role, I don't think he's very capable. So I'm going to give him one of my lowest scores. I'm giving him a 54.
That's one of your lowest scores?
Yikes.
Or is it your lowest?
It's close. My lowest is Chris O'Dowd at 52.
Take that, Chris O'Dowd.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Case.
David Spade is definitely one of the more recognizable names in comedic movies, especially from the 90s and early 2000s. And he thrives in roles that are small doses where he can use his snarky charm. And because of being small dose type of characters, I think he's more suited towards episodic TV shows rather than movies. Although I do find a lot of his movies entertaining, and we've talked about all those. I think his heyday, even though Joe Dirt came after this, I do think his heyday was in the Tommy Boy era when he had a massive presence on SNL, both as a writer and as one of the performers, and it allowed him to really showcase his talents and work off of others, SNL giants, and most notably Chris Farley. I do think being one of the biggest comedic duos ever gives him a bump for me in his pop culture score. I mean, anything that him and Chris Farley did, either on the screen or on TV, was great. However, he doesn't really make a dent in any awards. It has not had a box office success. He's really tough to compare to the other actors. With all that being said, I'm going to give him a 63.
We're all over the map. I like it.
Dan, you can only hit something in the 40s or 80s or 90s here. So, to stay consistent. So our guest, Munson.
I hear what all you gentlemen are saying, and you're not wrong in any way. So I'm going to take, everything, that you've said, but I'm going to add just a bit of a personal feeling about David Spade. My sense of humor came of age at the time when he was getting big. Him on SNL. I'll always remember him doing Hollywood Minute on SNL. And he had this one joke that I always loved, and it was something stupid and quick. He just said he was about to do a review of Chaplin, and he goes, "Oh, Chaplin, more like Craplin." That always just stuck. I love that. So seeing him there, and Tommy Boy and Black Sheep, and those are formidable movies for me. So that, also with the fact that I love seeing him with Farley, the two of them were just they hit at the right time. They were funny separately, but they were such a great team together. That's always going to have a bit of a soft spot for me. So I'm maybe a little ashamed to say, that the emotional, content of Spade is going to carry my score maybe a little higher than it would normally be. Okay? And I'm going to go with a 66 for him. So there, got a soft spot for him.
All scores are valid, my friend. All right, James, round us out.
So I think his sweet spot is definitely as the sarcastic, dry, kind of condescending straight man.
Yeah.
What you guys have covered is the positives that I see. His name recognition. There's 3 reasons why he's going to get the score from me that he's getting. It's his name recognition, Emperor's New Groove, actually good, and Joe Dirt. In Tommy Boy, he is not even close to the main reason why that movie's funny to me. It is a Chris Farley masterclass, and he plays well off Chris Farley. They have great chemistry, but
yeah,
it's just not something that I associate with I love because of David Spade. I think he's been genuinely bad in most of his roles. I think it's Emperor's New Groove is good and Joe Dirt is good, and I do not enjoy many others. So he will get one of my lowest scores, which is a 53.
Damn.
Oh, I'm not the lowest. Yes. That gives David Spade a 61.4, which puts him in 38th place between Aubrey Plaza and Gabe Byrne. How do we feel about that?
That's higher than I thought it was going to be.
So fair. Love that. And just I have a feeling Warren would have given him a decent score. So
maybe.
I feel like that number might be out of context.
All right. What does he have coming soon, James?
Looks like he's got Mr. Mayor doing a TV series. I think we got another Hotel Transylvania. Yeah, there we go. Transformania. There you go. You might as well just keep milking that cow. And then Untitled Diablo Cody, HBO TV show.
Nice.
I don't know what that's about.
Looks like it's in pre-production.
Yeah, so not quite there yet, but that's all I can find.
And whenever Bad Baby has her next music video, he'll just tag along, right?
I don't think they're friends after they dunked on each other. I think that's the end of that.
Hey, if you can pay me a nice paycheck, we can be friends.
That's a good point. That's fair.
That's money talks in Hollywood, especially when you're only doing two things. All right, so next episode is going to land on October 7th. We have a milestone coming, gentlemen, and that is James' long game effort to get his sister on the podcast.
Yeah, hell yeah. I'm pumped.
She's coming.
That's awesome.
Laura is going to be with us next episode. So another guest named Laura. It's going to get complicated.
That's my big sister. She's awesome.
That'll be fun.
That's sweet.
It's going to be fun. So we're going to have Laura with us. She chose one of these 5 actors, so I'll give them to you guys, and you all let me know. Let our audience know what you like, what you don't like. We've got Naomi Harris, Susan Sarandon, Chloe Grace Moretz, Annie McDowell, and Tommy Tiny Lister. Rest in peace.
Oh, rest in peace.
What do we like? What do we dislike from that list?
Like looking at that list.
And what would Laura pick?
1, that's a great list for my sister. 2, I know exactly who she picked.
Okay, save it. Let's hear from everybody else.
No question in my mind, I know who she picked.
Okay, so let's hear from everybody else, and then we'll finish with you and see if you're right.
I mean, Susan Sarandon would be great.
I agree. Like that's the best name that pops out of that thing, no question.
Bull Durham.
Yeah.
Just watch Bull Durham.
Andy McDowell, we get to watch Groundhog Day, and she's been in some other decent movies too. Sex, Lies, and Videotapes, fucking awesome.
Naomi Harris is a very good actress.
Yeah,
she's in some great stuff.
Who the fuck is Tommy Lister?
Dude, he's Debo.
Debo in Friday.
Yeah.
Oh, R.I.P. to the GOAT. My bad.
He basically plays like a gangster or like a prisoner in every movie he's in.
Big scary dude with the cut eye. Yep.
But I would love to do Susan Sarandon. She'd be great.
He Tiny was wasn't he the president in Galaxy Quest?
Yeah.
That's right. Or whatever that role was.
Or no, not Galaxy Quest, Fifth Element.
That's right.
Yeah, Fifth Element.
It is Fifth Element.
Was Chloe Grace Moretz in Kick-Ass?
She was.
She's very young.
What was her name? Like Batgirl or something?
She's been in a lot though.
She has.
She was in Neighbors 2, and
she was in Greta, a movie I saw a couple years ago. I did not like.
Greta was good.
I didn't like it. I hated her character. She made all the worst decisions.
What's her name is awesome.
She's amazing in everything she does.
Yeah, Isabelle Huppert. She's fantastic.
I don't know much about Annie McDowell, so that's the one I'd probably be most interested in, just learning about her life and career. I don't know much. 2
movies come to mind, and they're both good. But other than that, I don't really know much else.
All right, Dan, who would you pick?
I mean, Sarandon is the slam dunk there.
Yeah, no question.
But yes, it's not a bad list at all.
All right, James, finish us off. What do you think your sister chose? You seem pretty confident.
Yeah, my sister has always had a fascination with like young up and coming actors and actresses. And it's absolutely Chloe Grace Moretz. No question. Because like when I ask her like, oh, who's your favorite actor? It's always like the new like it girl or it guy that's coming. I was like, always them. And she's like, oh yeah, look at this role. And so when I saw the list, I was like, oh, this is a good list for her. Oh, it's definitely Chloe Grace Moretz. No question.
Well, if you're listening, a week from now, we'll post the wheel and you'll get a chance to see if James was right and if he knows his sister or if this whole family situation is gone.
Nah, dude, she's been like this since we were like little kids. Like she's like, you got to see this actor in this really shitty love story called like Legends of the Fall. His name's Brad Pitt. You'll love him. And I was like, this movie sucked, and it ends up being a superstar.
Little did she know that he would be the biggest movie star on the planet.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Heartthrob City. So, as always, Laura doesn't decide. We don't decide. The wheel decides, and we'll see how it goes.
Sometimes we decide.
Thank you. Thank you for whispering. Now that Warren's not here, you're the only whisperer, so we gotta do it.
Yep.
Until I get a guest that picks it. So, as we wrap things up, we want to once again give the floor to our good friend Dan Craig. Dan Craig, any plugs, wise words for our audience? It's your time to shine, my friend.
No, not at all. Just thanks again for a great time, and have a safe and happy and healthy year, everybody.
Yeah,
thanks for coming on, man. It's always a blast.
Thanks, Dan. It was great once again, man.
Yeah, man. So as we wrap up today, Remember, you can always find us on Twitter at Munson's at Movies. You can catch us on Instagram, Munson's at the Movies. You can email us, munsonsatthemovies@gmail.com. Any final thoughts from David Spade?
So you're going to tell me that you don't have no black cats, no Roman candles or screaming mimes? You don't got no lady fingers, buzz buttles, snicker bombs, church burners, finger blasters, gut busters, zippity doodads, or crap flappers? You're going to stand there owning a fireworks stand and tell me you don't have no whistling bungholes? No spleen splitters, whisker biscuits, honky lighters, Husker do's, Husker don'ts, cherry bombs, nipsy-daisers, with or without the scooter stick, or one single whistling kitty chaser? Well, that might be a problem. It's not what you like, it's the consumer.
Munson's out.
All right, let's go. Thank you for the education, gentlemen. We've just received a PhD in stupidity. Doctor, shall we?